Welcome to Scoop World Order. It's Thursday night. The Buckeye basketball team is on a tear as they march towards the national championship in basketball. Haha. I'm really excited about what they've been doing. Got another game tomorrow in the marathon stretch to try to make a miracle run to the Big Ten championship. We're going to talk about day 2 of spring practice, which I know you guys are much more interested in than this basketball season. Got a lot of buzz. Heard a lot of stuff today. Got some great intel late, so that's why the show is so late. So we're going to kind of go through what we were told, what happened when everybody was told to leave, and some of the stuff that went on when they were doing some team drills. So we're going to get into that. But first, as always, we have to be thankful. We're very grateful for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Click like, click subscribe, click alert, and you'll get the alert every time we go live. This is a little bit later show. We were waiting to get some intel. We got some intel. We're going to share some of that with you, and I'm going to get on in those comments. Type, who do you want to see step up in spring football? And also, who's your pick for starting quarterback? Because I think those are two very important things. Also, shout out where you're from. Write that in the comments. I read all your comments. I love your comments. So do that. It helps us. The more comments, the better. So go ahead. Let it rip. That being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Buckeyes second day of practice, but already things are starting to happen, man. You're starting to see the skeleton kind of taking shape, and I think I probably know more after two days of practice than most springs all together. So very exciting time to be covering the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I'm excited because there's going to be a fresh face at quarterback. I still think there isn't much of competition that Kyle McCord is the guy. I think he had another good day today, but it's interesting to see when there's some ancillary spots. Joe Royer is a guy that's really making a move. He had a fantastic winter, but he's really looked great the first couple of days. There's no pads on yet, but there's a lot of throwing that goes on when there isn't pads on. He's a guy that really, really is explosive. Again, you have to remember that there was a point where there was basically a one-on-one day where it was him and Luke Lachey, obviously Jim Lachey's kid, and they had to pick one tight end to take, and they took Joe Royer. And Luke Lachey played against us last year. Obviously, he's a legacy. Jim Lachey is one of the greatest Buckeyes ever. He's our color commentator. So for Joe Royer to take that spot over Luke Lachey, he had to have been tremendous. And he's a kid that's faced a lot of adversity. His mother, unfortunately, passed away last season. Obviously devastating. So he was, obviously in a rough, dark place for most of the season. But he kind of turned the corner during bowl practice a few months after she passed and was able to make a key catch against Georgia. And I think that kid can be an absolute superstar. I think that he has a gear that Cade Stover probably doesn't have. And I love Cade Stover. I think Cade Stover potentially could be the best tight end in America this year. But Joe Royer is an exceptional athlete. And the way that we like to use our two tight end sets, it's going to be really interesting to see how much they put Cade in line, how much they put Joe in line. And by in line, I mean on the line of scrimmage, blocking next to the tackle, because they love to do that little tight end wing formation that is a big staple in Ryan Day's offense. So it'll be interesting to see the tight end utilization going forward with Kevin Wilson not being the offensive coordinator. Because you got to remember, Kevin Wilson was the tight ends coach. So sometimes when you are a certain position coach and you happen to be the coordinator, you like to feature your own guys a little bit. And I don't think there's anything wrong with what Kevin did with the two tight ends. I actually loved what he did with the two tight ends, but it'll be interesting to see if Brian Hartline leans a little bit more towards having a fourth wide receiver in the game versus the two tight end look. So Nevada, who are some guys that you've heard through the first couple of days of spring and that you're excited to see when they put the pads on after spring break?
Well, one name, and this is a name that you don't hear a lot of, and it's Ty Hamilton. A lot of the talk about the interior line goes to Mike Hall and to Tyleek Williams, and necessarily so. Those two guys have both been, they've shown flashes of being absolutely outstanding, dominant interior defensive linemen. But Ty might be the safest bet to pick as a starter on the interior line because he's he does everything right. He does his responsibilities. He's strong. He holds the point of attack. Like I said, he doesn't freelance, which is something that they've been critical of Michael Hall in certain situations. Is he does kind of what he wants to do instead of doing what he's supposed to do. And that's kind of an issue on the interior line because if guys are going the wrong way or, not going into their gap, that creates problems for everybody behind him and all the way down the line. So, I think Ty Hamilton is a guy that I would really keep an eye on. I think, he's really going to play some significant minutes. I think he's going to be, when the first snap's going, I would not be shocked to see him out there at all. And, he's a kid that I like. Obviously, his bloodlines are great. His brother, tremendous player at Ohio State. But I think he's becoming a great player in his own right, and might be one of my kind of little sneaky breakout stars for the spring. And he was on my all body transformation team, but now he's kind of on the watch to make it matter when he's on the field as well. So I think Ty Hamilton's a pick there. Kai Stokes is another guy that I really really like. I like what he's doing out there at safety. I like the way that he looks, like the way that he moves, and I got a couple players in the defense. I'm really excited about the defense, and I'm really excited to see what happens when the pads go on and the hitting starts in earnest.
I agree. Real quick, appreciate you guys being in here, Sue, as always. Scott, hope you're feeling better, my man. He's in the hospital watching us, so we're thinking about you, my man. Yeah, I think that this is the time where guys start to emerge. Guys like Ty Hamilton can really make a move, because before you're kind of you're behind Jerron Cage, Teron Vincent. You've kind of just been an ancillary rotational guy. Now you have a real chance to be a starter, and a guy that I'm higher on than probably most. I think Jack Sawyer is a guy, and even JT Tumalo, I think he's got another level that he can get to, just in terms of being full-time starters. Playing defensive end. I thought Jack really was a fish out of water. The more I've watched the tape of him playing Jack, the more I realize how much of a disservice it was to him. And he tried to do it, but I think that the way that they deployed it was just incredibly ineffective, just due to the scarcity of it. I think it's hard to get into a rhythm as a player. I mean, being a former player, back in the olden days when I played, I really liked getting my turns. I wanted to play 60, 70 snaps. I wanted to get into a little bit of a rhythm. It's kind of like being a pitcher in baseball. Like, if you're used to being a starting pitcher, it's sometimes hard to come in and as a closer in the ninth inning and sit around all night and then all of a sudden have to get all gassed up, 2.5 hours into the game to come win it. So, I think that, guys like Jack and JT, they're not rotational guys. They want to be out there for the first snap. They want to make a difference and get after the quarterback. Because again, I think the biggest thing for this defense to take the next step is that our defensive ends have to be better on the pass rush. I think that Jack having his hand on the ground and being a defensive end from the first snap of the game onward is going to be just a huge boon for him in his game. Because again, the hardest part about the Jack package, as I studied it, and I studied it his last year at Oklahoma State, I watched a lot of film, I listened to clinic talks, is that he really had to be a guy that was basically like a nose guard that would have to basically take on blockers. And then, the linebacker, Tommy or Seal, would have to make the play in the hole. And if those guys didn't make the plays, man, it was like a 70-yard gain. And it happened, 2 or 3 times during the season. And I think Jack's just, he's better as a hand on the ground defensive end than he was as that floating Jack kind of hybrid linebacker thing. So I think we, Mac, you're in Wheelersburg. I actually had lunch at the Scioto River yesterday. It was fantastic. I was down in Southern Ohio, so shout out Wheelersburg. Big time Buckeye fans down in Southern Ohio. So we love you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com. But we, I think Nevada, you're talking about Noah Rogers. We do a little pre-show, kind of go through our notebooks together and see who we've heard. What have you heard about some of the young receivers? Because we have 3 incredible. We have the Rogers, I call them brothers. They're not really brothers. The Rogers brothers. And we have Carnell Tate with Brandon Ennis showing up in June. What have you heard about some of the young freshman wide receivers thus far?
Well, I'm hearing a lot about them, which first of all is that's kind of a change from what last year. Last year we kept waiting to hear, for those guys that were flashing, those guys that were ready to kind of step up and make plays, and we never really heard it. And then, come playing time, we never really saw it. But you're already hearing, we've talked a lot about Carnell Tate, how good he's been and, how much of a leader he's been in the weight room and just kind of emerging as kind of an alpha dog amongst the the freshman. Well, Noah Rogers is making kind of a similar impact, and he's a guy that's everybody's taking notice of. Everybody's keeping their eyes on. Everybody's looking at him and kind of going, "Wow, who is this guy?" Because he moves like an upperclassman. He understands the offense. He's understanding what they're trying to do, and he's a guy that a lot of the upperclassmen are saying, "Hey, watch this kid. This kid's going to be big time." So Noah Rogers, another player, kind of breaking out already early, before the pads go on. It's a little bit of a different game, but you can tell who can run, who can, turn those defensive backs around, and who are those guys that have those great hands and can make those catches. And Noah Rogers is definitely one of those guys. Definitely a name to remember.
Yeah, so those of you guys that are tuned in, we have some Noah. This is some Noah Rogers high school film from last season. So, again, we just like to let you know what we're working with here. Obviously, there's no film as an Ohio State player other than a couple of practices with no pads on, but you can see the athleticism. You see him high point the ball. Again, this is an incredibly talented receiver room. Obviously, with Emeka and Marvin at the top, Julian kind of in that middle tier. And then you've got a bunch of guys fighting for that number 4 role with Xavier Johnson, with Carnell, with the 2 Rogers kids, with Ennis, and then you've got that whole freshman class from last year. Who's going to be the guy? Keon Graves, Caleb Burton. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that they better get on their horse and get rolling, because this is a competitive room, and that's the thing that with these true freshmen coming in, man, they are not there to wait around and wait their turn. They're trying to take spots and take jobs, and that's good. I always like guys that come in, they're not scared, they're there to work, they're not there to, there's always sometimes with when you have a bad room, a bad position room, sometimes there's guys that are like, oh, are you a try hard? Oh, you're at the jugs machine. Oh, you're hanging out in Coach Hartline's room or Coach Fry's room, whatever, because you're trying to be a suck up or be seen that you're watching extra film. But like I always hated stuff like that, because I think that guys need to do whatever it takes for them to get to the level that they want to be at, where they are, an all Big Ten, an All American, a first round pick, a top tier NFL guy. Like there's never the only ceiling that you really set is kind of what you set. So these guys are talented. These guys want to play. I know that there's opportunity this year, but next year, after Marvin and Emeka leave and Julian leave, there's a gigantic opportunity, because there's literally going to be 3 starting spots, and then you throw J.J. Smith and JoJo Trader into the mix, and it's going to be an incredibly talented, but incredibly young unit that Brian Hartline's going to have control of. Nevada, we always have to talk O-line. I mean, the O-line is going to be one of those things I think people are going to be worried about. Josh Fryer is a guy, I got some really good feedback on Josh. Josh is a guy exceptionally tough. He's a grinder. He's gritty. He's not as pretty as Paris Johnson. Paris is like he's just a spectacular player, kind of just a prototype left tackle. Josh is more of a gritty grinder, tough guy who can fight you at left tackle. I really love his mentality, and I love his athleticism. But what do you think about the offensive line and some of the parts? And I think Carson Hinsman's actually taken a really nice step, and there's a great chance he could be our starting center week 1 once the foot hits the ball. But what are you hearing on the O-line?
Well, I just, again, it's hard to tell before the pads come on, but in terms of the guys, in terms of their knowledge of the offense, in terms of their mobility, in terms of just kind of evaluating what the work that's been done during the winter, there's a lot to like about Josh Fryer. I mean, Josh Fryer, could go down as being, like we always talk about like Corey Linsley, how he didn't start a game until his 4th year in the program. Obviously, Josh has started games before now, but he could come out of relative obscurity, wearing the 41, the extra tight end jersey, and to be a really highly regarded offensive lineman at Ohio State, like really highly regarded. And the people I'm talking to are like, man, Josh is athletic. He's a guy that can windmill dunk. He's got great feet. He's, just, his knowledge of the offense is, out of this world. Super strong, super nasty, finishes it also. No, I'm excited about him at left tackle. I think we had talked most of the offseason talking about him at right tackle. At left tackle, it makes an awful lot of sense to have him flipped over there And I can't wait to see what he can do against these defensive ends, because this is going to give him a real test with live bullets about how well he's going to be able to play the position. And the people I talked to are really excited about him, really excited about the leadership role he's already taken on the offensive line, and really excited about how he looks on the left side. They're anchoring the left side with Donnie Jackson. So very excited about Josh Pryor.
See, I think you put your two most veteran guys over on the left side. You can help out a little bit on the right side with Matt and whoever the right tackle ends up being. I still think it's going to be Zen, but it could be George Fitzpatrick. It could be Tigra. I mean, it's kind of open trial. It's basically whoever wants to pass protect the best versus JT2 Malala, you get to win the job. So I think it's going to be really, it's going to be a great battle. I think, again, that, I always say this and I don't like saying this out loud, but whoever can say the healthiest and make it through at a high level, I always think that that's the kind of the best indicator of what who's going to be at the leader when you start camp. And even as you get into camp and as you get into the season, I obviously you're going to probably name a starter, but sometimes competitions go into the season. I mean, when I was competing to be the right tackle, I was rotating in the first 3-4 games, and then by about the 5th game, I was the starting right tackle in 04. But I didn't win the job out of camp. I got hurt during spring ball. So again, that's probably why I bring that up, because, I felt like I was the best right tackle. I know I was the best right tackle. I ended up being the best right tackle. But, if you're hurt, it doesn't matter how good you are. So, some of these guys, as practices get more physical and things get tougher, they just got to keep coming. And a guy that, in my mind, that fits that profile is Jacob James, who was our backup center last year. Great kid, coach's son, comes from a great program down in Cincinnati. He's a kid that is fighting and scrapping to get as much practice as he can. He's not cleared to do live 11-on-11 work, but he's doing individual drills and doing as much as he can. And I'm sure it's ripping his heart out right now that he's not able to play, because I mean, he sat behind Luke, who was his classmate in the same recruiting class, and Luke, is already 3 and out and going pro, and Jacob's trying to make his first career start and take that job. So he's fist fighting to try and to get in there and not let Carson Hinsman run away with the job. Because that's the hard part is when you're injured and you're watching, it's like, obviously, of course you want the guy to do well, but like, deep down, like you don't want him to do that well. Like you want to because if Carson Hinsman turns into LaCharles Bentley or Nick Mangold, then Jacob James is watching, and he's been passed by a younger guy. So that's kind of some of the stuff that like people don't say out loud, but you want to play and you want to start, and if you get beat out, then it's like, what do I do? Do I wait around? Do I transfer? Like that's kind of the tough part that goes into spring ball. Nevada, we're going to shift to the safeties, because that is probably, outside of the offensive line, the hottest room in terms of competition, talent. Obviously, you had Jihad Carter, the kid from Syracuse. You've got Sonny Styles, who is, as talented of a safety as we've probably ever had, if he even stays a safety, because he could, he's a couple of Big Macs away from being an outside linebacker. But what are your thoughts on the safety room? Our guy, a guy that I love, Josh Proctor, is starting at this very moment. And he's a kid that, guys, a lot of 6-year guys that went through what Josh went through last year would have transferred out and nobody would have blamed him. But this kid decided he wanted to stay a Buckeye. And I'm sure he talked it out with, with Jim Knowles and with Ryan Day and with, his position coaches. And he's back and he's starting. And I hope he has a massive year. Again, I've heard from really good sources, not people that have only watched like one safety in life, say that he's really talented and he just kills guys. So I hope he can put it all together this year for our sake. But Nevada, give me your thoughts on the safeties, Josh Proctor, Sonny Styles, Kai Stokes, kind of a rundown of what you hope for and what you've heard so far.
Well, I think, as we talked about last night, I think they really want to try to get, Sonny Styles on the field, via the safety route. And when I had it broken down for me kind of as simply as could possibly be put, it was like, look, you already know that you've got Lathan Ransom and Josh Proctor that are more than likely, one of your 2 or your 3 starters at your safety spot, considering the fact that Knowles likes to play 3. And, if you're in a likely running down, you'd like to see Sonny out there. And if you're in a likely passing down, you probably like to see Jihad Carter out there. And, that made a lot of sense to me, whether however you call them, the free, the strong, the bandit, or whatever, the adjuster, the implementer, whatever it is. But they're going to try to get Sonny on the field via the safety route, and boy, I mean, that would be intimidating as heck to see Sonny Styles and Josh Proctor roaming around the defensive backfield. They're looking to take guys' heads off. That's for sure. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. They're going to see how that works. They're going to see how they can match that up. And yeah, I like you said, the safety competition is going to be one of the most fierce throughout the spring. And hey, the fact that Josh Proctor decided to come back for a 6 year after basically getting stoned last year, where they just said you're not playing. Um, I think he's got to have a place on the field, and I think he knows that. Lathan Ransom was playing at an All-American level up to the last two games. He's going to play, and then Sonny and Jihad split those other things, and I'm happy. Let's go. Let's tee it up and let's play some football.
I think that you just got to be excited for a kid that wants to come back and fight for a job the way he does, and I think he's got, like I said, a bright future. I think he could be a guy that again, we always kind of joke that is Sonny going to turn into Micah Parsons? Is he going to turn into Sean Taylor? Like, what does he want to be? What can he be? And there's still whispers out there about Lorenzo Sells Jr. joining us at corner, and I don't know if this spring, especially adding Davidson Igbinason, if he's still in the mix, but that would be interesting too, because I don't think you can ever have enough corners, given how Jordan Hancock hasn't been able to stay healthy, and you see so many 3 and 4 wide receiver looks. It always helps to be able to match personnel with an extra corner in the game. We'll also take some questions. Let me, it is Sue. I'm going to put this one up here first. What's up, Paul? It's good seeing you tonight. Again, this is one, Sue. I wish that I had a better answer than there had to. Again, I'm not trying to speculate, but something internally had to have gone on with Josh, because I mean, to get benched after one play after that much hype was almost crazy. Again, I haven't seen anything like it, and I've seen guys get benched year over year. There's always a guy or two that gets benched. Guys that start off the year, they don't play well early on, or somebody kind of plays spot duty, or they play well in backup time, and then they end up taking the job. So that's just football. But for Josh Proctor to literally go from very gaudy hype from the coordinator, not from me or Nevadabuck or media members or some source, like, this is a defensive coordinator saying that he could literally be the best safety in America, to not playing was very strange. So I have not gotten to the bottom of that. I've asked people about that, and I mean, they're very diplomatic when they talked about it. But again, I'm just happy the kid's back. I mean, no one's rooting harder for Josh Proctor than Nevada and I, just because I think that he's a great kid, and I think that he's got a lot of talent. And I mean, if he would have gone to the Florida Gators like Tarajda did, Tarajda is a kid that 2 years ago was captain. He was captain of the team, preseason starter, and it didn't work out. Didn't play well under Kerry Combs. Got benched. Came back last year with Jim Knowles, didn't play literally at all, other than I think I remember him getting a personal foul. And he goes off to Florida, and Josh Proctor, played a little bit more than Tarajda, but he could have just as easily gone elsewhere and been guaranteed a starting spot, but he decided to come back here and compete versus guys like Kai Stokes and Sonny Styles, and and plus we bring in Jihad Carter from Syracuse. So it is an uphill fist fight to win that starting safety job. So it's going to be real interesting to see how that goes as we get into camp. But yeah, I do not have an answer on Proctor. Nevada, I don't think you do either, but your thoughts on the Proctor thing last year? I know we talked about that ad nauseum, but it was just such a strange situation.
Well, I had heard on that first play, that that they had practiced against that they talked about that. They talked about him not being late, and he was late and missed wrapping that guy up. And I think it was Styles, right? It was the other Styles that went for like 64 yards or whatever it was, and then we stopped him. But I think it was a quick trip to the doghouse, because it was something that they had talked about so many times, and then he missed it anyway. And I think Jim Knowles got frustrated with that, but the rest of the season was just a complete mystery to me because I understand doing that maybe for the game, maybe for a half, but for the entire season, like I said, it was a weird one. I'm not sure we'll ever really understand it.
Yeah, it was just a different deal. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. This is another good question, CJ. I think it's a great question, dude. Why can't we run a 4-3 and play Seal, CJ, and Tommy? Honestly, that's a great question. I think that Jim Knowles is married to the three safety thing, which to me is just the same as playing nickel defense. You just call. I mean, he literally calls the nickel a nickel. Like, so the nickel slot guy, he just turns him as a safety, but he could just as easily be a corner, in my opinion. I think it's just more that people are scared to run three linebackers because of how much teams run spread offenses. I really think that's what it is, and that's why 99% of teams don't run three linebacker looks. Iowa is like one of the last. They still run it like a decent amount, but I'm telling you, like the days of the old three linebackers, like when we had Hochschlegel and Carpenter, those days are gone. Unless football is cyclical and it goes back to having the old fullback and the I formation type stuff. I just think that the 4-3 defense isn't effective versus a good spread, as opposed to a nickel defense. And I think that the NFL reflects that. I think that college football reflects that. Even high school, I mean, there's some teams that still run some of the old I formation stuff, but it just, the game is so spread out now that I think you almost have to play nickel almost 80% of the time, 85% of the time. And if you run into a team that does the tight end stuff, the Wisconsin, some Michigan State, some of those, Illinois with Bielema, he loves to do that kind of stuff. Then you can bring in that third linebacker. But I just think the game's too spread out to run three linebackers. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean, you understand when I was playing football, we ran an Oklahoma 54. So we played with four linebackers, and now it's but again, we always talk about how on this show, one of our jobs, one of the things that one of our core values is to try to educate our listeners, try to make them better listeners, smarter listeners, more engaged listeners. Jim Knowles does not run some crazy exotic defense. He runs a nickel defense. It's a 4-2-5. That's all it is. And when you're with people and they go, "Oh, Jim Knowles runs some crazy dipsy doodle defense and it's high," no, just say no. It's really not. You really don't know what you're talking about. He just calls that third safety, the whatever name he calls it for the day, and it's really just a nickel. That's all it is. And even going back to when Ohio State won the national championship in 15, I mean, with Darren Lee, Darren Lee would kind of suck out there, and he was kind of that hybrid guy that was kind of coming out there at the linebacker, but was really a guy that was fast enough to kind of cover. And so you saw kind of the beginning of it, but now it's just that's the way the defenses are run. You're right. I don't think it's going back. I don't think you're ever going to see 3 and 4 linebackers anymore. I think it's going to be 2, and that's what we run is that 4-2-5.
Yeah, and I'm kind of, with my little whiteboard thing, just kind of drawing up kind of how these guys normally draw. So this is what is kind of always the same. This is the front. So you see you got your two ends here. You've got your, so here's an end, here's a nose, here's a tackle. This is just by a 3-by-1 set. So this is your tight end, obviously. But where he lines the safeties is what's kind of different. So he literally, this is your slot receiver right here. And he calls that guy a nickel. So I'm going to put an NI for nickel. Actually, we'll spell it out. So he's got a nickel, and then he calls the boundary safety. So imagine this is the hash mark. Okay, so we're on the left hash of the football field. Here's the right hash over here. And these guys would be spread out a little bit more, but it's a little condensed because I've got the little the videos of us on the side. But in the middle of the field, he plays what he calls the adjuster safety. So I'm going to write adjuster. This is kind of it's kind of like what you think of as like a free safety type deal. And then to the short side of the field, he plays the bandit, which that's kind of like your old like strong safety. again, and then the nickel is like what you call a nickel. So, but he just likes to play three safeties. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of a visual aid of what Jim Knowles does for safeties. And again, I don't think that it's that much different. I think that he likes to play a safety body type. It's the nickel more than a corner. I think that's a big difference. And sometimes he'll play, three safeties, deep, like across the deal. Like he'll align the adjuster, the nickel, and then the bandit here, and he'll have his corners up here, which is a little different, but it's not that crazy different. Apologize, I got to kind of screwy there, but I just I always hear how's the defense different, or this wacky three safety thing, and it's really not that different. I mean, the Jack thing was kind of different, but his base defense isn't that crazy different. So again, I just wanted to kind of draw that so you guys could get a visual of what it looks like, because sometimes when you say, oh, three safeties and bandit and adjuster and nickel, and I'm like, 90% of the defenses when you turn the TV on are in nickel defense. So that's kind of what we run. We just like to run a third safety there instead of a third corner. I mean, that's the biggest difference to me, is that I think that we give up some coverage skills for some run stopping skills by playing a safety as the slot guy instead of a corner. But that's just my opinion. And I think sometimes we'd be better served to put a third corner that can cover a slot guy in that spot, as opposed to a guy like a Tanner McAllister or whoever. But again, it depends on the skill set and the body type. Because if a guy is a safety and he can run and he can and cover, well, then obviously it's probably gonna be a first round pick. But that's like the ideal guy for that slot spot. But for me, if it's first couple downs, I mean, Sonny Styles to me would be the perfect slot guy, because he can cover short area, but he also is a guy that can hit like a Mack truck and be there, on the wide side of the field for run support. Because the thing about Sonny is, as big and athletic and as freaky as he is, he also is not scared at all. Like, he will put his face mask in the middle of your chest and pile drive you into the ground, and he doesn't blink, and that's not typical for defensive backs. A lot of those guys, they're allergic to contact, but Sonny's not that guy. This is a great question. I love this. I love this one, Paul. All right, Nevada, we're going to do who leads the defense in sacks and how many interceptions do the Buckeyes end up with. Appreciate you, Paul. As always, you and Sue lead the way, always on the show. I'll let you start, Nevada.
Leads the team in sacks. I'm going to go with JT Tuimoloau. I'm going to go. He'll go with. He'll have 12. He'll have 12 sacks to lead the Buckeyes, and Jack Sawyer will be right behind him at 10. And so it's 22 between the two defensive ends, which would be quite an improvement. Interceptions, well, first of all, the fact that we didn't get any interceptions out of the cornerbacks last year is that's going to turn around this year. We're going to get more than that. So I'll say we're going to get we'll get one a game. So I'll say 15 interceptions. How's that?
That works. I mean, nowhere to go but up from our corners. When you lay the goose egg last year, which again that's like one of those prop bets in Vegas where if you say, I don't even know what you set the odds at, Nevada, because I know that you're good at setting odds and gambling and numbers. But if I'd have told you last year, hey, it's a prop bet, it's kind of like, getting, a team scoring a safety in the Super Bowl or something like that. Ohio State is going to have 0 interceptions out of their cornerback room this year. I don't know what you'd bet. Maybe you throw $10 on it or 50 or $100 on it, and you get, 100 to 1 odds or 500 to 1 odds that we wouldn't have a single interception. And we played, 14 games or whatever we played. It's like, it's almost insane because, we're so good on offense and we get so far ahead of teams that teams have to throw on us for almost 3/4 of every single game because we're up by 49 points. So they're not even going to run the ball. They're going to be throwing, and, they generally don't have great offensive lines, and we generally have a good pass rush. So you assume there's going to be some lollipop throw that one of our corners is going to snag and get his hands on, but we didn't do it a single time last year. So I'll say 20 picks because I'm going to count the safeties too and the linebackers. And for sacks, God, I really want to go my call here. I'm going to go Jack Sawyer. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Jack just because I think that JT is going to get a lot of attention this year from opposing teams. I think Jack is lighter and quicker, and he's going to be hungry after kind of a lost season last year. And I think he's a motivated kid, man, because all I hear is right now is that he sucks. So, when you're that guy and you come in as the 5-star in the next Bosa brother, you don't have, the first couple of years. And mind you, Jack Sawyer led the team in sacks last year. He had 4.5 sacks. So, and he did it on probably about a third as many plays as Zach Harrison or JT Tuimoloau had. But, so if you give him the same snap count, does he go to 8 sacks? I don't know. I mean, it could happen. It could not happen. But I think I'll go with Jack just to be contrarian to Nevada because I don't like picking the same stuff that he does. But, I would love for JT to lead. I'd love for them both to get double digits. I think that'd be fantastic for the defense as a whole, just to get that pressure going again, like we've had on our great defense, like that 19 defense when we had packages where Chase Young and Baron Browning were coming off the edge and meeting at the quarterback and good push in the middle. Like I think that's something we have to get back to in a hurry. Yeah, I saw Mark Nave got an offer. That was really interesting from Georgia. I think that's just like they almost just do like a troll offer anymore. What's up, Scott? I see. I know you're a Louisville guy. All right, this is a good one. Who Nevada do you see making a mark on the Buckeyes that's not on the radar right now? That's a great question. I love questions like that.
My unsung Buckeye. Well, can I go to Reed Carrico again and say Reed Carrico at fullback as my unsung Buckeye?
Yeah, of course. It's your pick.
That's what I'm going with. I'm going with Reed Carrico to make the position swap to fullback and make a mark for the Buckeyes there. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's on that. You heard it here first from Nevadabuck, and he'll be my unsung dark horse player of the year, coming from nowhere to make a big impact for the Buckeyes.
And I'm going to piggyback this. I just saw this from Dave. This is a great question. Is the Rossi rollback this season in terms of being like that fullback and slot guy? And is Carrico an option for this position? I'll let you take that first, Nevada, and then I'll give my thought on that, and I'll also give my unsung Buckeye.
Yeah, no, I think he is actually. I think they liked what they got out of it last year, and it would have been nice to get another year out of Mitch. Even I remember the first time I mentioned him in a Nugget, and people were like, "What the heck is Nevada talking about Mitch Rossi? Like, who is this guy?" And he turned out to be super valuable, doing some really interesting things. Reed can do those things too, man. I'm telling you, he is strong and he is fast and tough kid. Could really do some interesting things for the Buckeyes, and yeah, I'll say he'll make it. He'll make an impact for us at that mid. We'll call it the Mitch Rossi position. And before that, it was the Stan White position, and he'll hopefully go down in lore like Stan White did up in the '05 Michigan a game up there in Ann Arbor and make the big block to spring somebody in for the winning touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I was actually in Ironton yesterday for work, and it was interesting because I talked to some people that knew Reed really well, and Reed is funny because Reed is actually killing it in NIL, like kind of quietly. But I was driving around and there's like a giant billboard of Reed with Rack's roast beef, which I was like, that is the funniest thing because I didn't even know Rack still existed, and like Reed standing there holding like a like a roast beef sandwich with his gear on, and I was like, that's pretty sick. I like it. But yeah, he's a kid that he just wants to do anything he can to get on the field. And the funny thing is that last year they asked him to move to fullback tight end to kind of be like Mitch Rossi's backup, and he didn't do it because he wanted to stay at linebacker. But this year, I mean, when Tommy, because I think last year at this time he might not have known, and we might not have known how good Tommy Eichenberg was. Obviously, Tommy's going to be a preseason first-team All-American favorite to win the Butkus. Seal Chambers is he'll be preseason All Big Ten-ish, first, second team. It could easily be All Big Ten after next year if he takes the next step of being a linebacker. But I think that for Reed, like this is a big year for him. He's got to get on the field somehow, some way. I know they want him to be a special teams demon, but you can kind of cut your teeth being that tough blocking back and he's really athletic. Like I had a guy in the Woody Hayes who I really trust say that kid can float. And by float, like he can like really, really run. Like he's a very smooth athlete. And again, he's a kid from Southern Ohio. He's a tough kid. Like when you think of Ironton, you think of roughneck, tough guys. You don't think of smooth, polished athletes, but Reed is that. But he's also tough as nails. But I think that the Rossi role is something that really didn't exist for a long time because Urban didn't believe in playing a fullback basically ever. And, Mitch kind of fit that skill set and they started to do it, and they did some under center I formation, play action pass stuff and short yardage, short red zone stuff. And I thought it was really good stuff by Ryan Day because I think that it helped CJ Stroud get prepared for some of the NFL stuff that teams like to do. They like to, there's still a handful of teams that carry a fullback and they do some of that stuff because, I think that teams aren't used to going against it now. So now all of a sudden you run a fullback and they're like, well, how do we stop that? We have no idea because we're used to, shotgun spread 3-by-1 formations the whole time. So, wow, this is a great question. Jay Beggs. Wow. Tim Gardner. What a blast from the past. What really happened to Tim Gardner, an offensive tackle from the 2013 and 14 class? Props to you guys, man. You guys are an incredibly educated crew because some of the names you guys bring up are just crazy. So Tim Gardner was a kid that I was really close with. He's a kid that I really liked, worked really hard. The interesting thing about Tim is he was like a 3-star type guy, project type guy. Most people didn't think he was like that great, but he came out to camp and like he was like a decent looking kid, a little heavy. But God, he had just incredible feet. Oh my God. So we do this one-on-one pass rush drill, which I'm sure you guys have seen at a lot of scouting combines or whatever. And Ed Warner and I are watching him. And this kid, like this little chubby kid, gets out there, and the defensive end that was out there was Tyquan Lewis. And Tyquan was just an absolute terror off the edge. He was unbelievably good. He was a kid that we offered, we really wanted. He's a guy that was Bama, Clemson, Florida. He had every offer. He was a great player. And Tim went out to left tackle and locked him down like over and over again, stayed in front of him, got his hands on him, like clamped him. And like, we're watching this kid and we kept watching him. And the more we watched him, the more we liked him. We liked his attitude. He was tough, worked really hard. Just a nice kid. He, lived with grandma. Grandma was, old, 80 something years old, whatever. And, but the kid, it was funny because we liked him. We weren't going to offer him that day, but we said, look, we want you to lose 25 pounds and be, 310 and come back to Friday Night Lights. So this kid literally dropped 25 pounds in 6 weeks or whatever. He ran every night. His grandma had him run every night. And he was a really he was just a great kid. And he came to Friday Night Lights and he had a really nice performance there too. And then, we get down the road and we end up offering the kid. And I really liked him. And he got to Ohio State. And I don't know if he failed a drug test or what happened, but he ended up leaving almost immediately. It was almost crazy. And I asked Ed Warner, I was like, what happened to Tim? Like, he just got here and he's already gone, and something like that happened. And, I think he's like a classic case of if he would have stayed in Mickey Marotti's weight room with Ed Warner coaching him there, he could have been an NFL guy. But, he ends up going to Indiana and he kind of bounces around like the XFL and the USFL and all these other weird leagues. And, once you get out of the kind of the track that you're in when you're at Ohio State, all bets are off. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of Torrance Gibson. Torrance Gibson's a kid that if he just stayed on the rails at Ohio State and he didn't get screwed over by that girl that basically got him kicked out of school and expelled from school, he's probably on his second contract in the NFL right now. But, things happen. And then all of a sudden when guys go off into the ether and they're off the kind of the super highway to the NFL that Ohio State has turned into, then all bets are kind of off. So yeah, was Tim Gardner a bust? I mean, I guess, because he didn't make it at Ohio State, but if guys, can't make it through 3 or 4 or 5 years in the program, it's hard to tell what they would have been if they would have been able to stick with Mickey Marotti, especially because I just saw what Mickey does with linemen. I saw Tim's natural talent, his work ethic, because he was a kid that worked hard. I mean, we asked him to lose weight, and it wasn't like we asked him to lose 5 pounds. We asked him to lose 25 pounds, and his grandma was like, he runs every night. He'll go run for 2 hours, eats right, put down the cookies. He's eating, vegetables and salads. And so it showed a lot of dedication because he really wanted that offer. And I loved the kid. It broke my heart when he got kicked out of school, but That's just part of the gig, man. I mean, you can't save them all, but I really like the kid. That was a great question. Thanks, Bags. Nevada, you still there? I know that was a long response.
Yeah, I stopped listening about 10 minutes ago, so somebody's just got to fill me in on what.
You got any of those guys like that in your past?
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny when Tim Gardner came, it was, or I should say, when Tim Gardner was recruited and came and left, and then DeJuan Jones kind of got offered out of Indiana. Like your thoughts immediately go to it. Another kind of big, heavy kid out of Indiana, and you're wondering, is he going to be another, Tim Gardner and kind of not work out? And now DeJuan goes on and he's probably going to be an offensive tackle two in the NFL draft and a multimillionaire and a 10-year starter. And it's just, it's funny, but when he was recruited, that was my first thought. My first thought was Tim Gardner. So yeah, it's, now we're 1 for 2 on Indiana lineman. Gonna have to go for 3 for the tiebreaker.
Yeah, if you count D lineman, we had Dexter too. Dexter Larimore was a second round guy. But no, it's sad when you see some of these kids that really could have made it and they don't. This is a great question, Evan. Kirk in Nevada. And so I'll start with you, Nevada. Do you see Ryan Day focusing on the run more this season? In the case of McCord Brown, since they're a slight setback from previous quarterbacks, or do you think Day will still favor the pass over the run? And by Day, I assume you also mean Brian Hartline, the new offensive coordinator in Nevada. You can take the first crack at that.
I think that as long as Ryan Day is here at Ohio State, we will always be pass first. With Brian Hartline as the offensive coordinator, will most certainly be pass first. So I think they'll ask the quarterbacks to do different things, though. I think they'll, as we've talked about, I think they'll ask the quarterbacks to be more, a little bit more mobile, take a few more chances with their legs, try to extend plays a little bit more. And they'll try to get them going with some easy routes, some easy throws early on in the games, then kind of see if they can kind of progress them along the route tree as they kind of move deeper into the season and deeper into as the opponents go. But now I think we'll always be fast first. I think that's just the way it is with Ryan Day. That's what he's most comfortable with. And you got to remember, Ryan Day was a quarterback, and he was a quarterback. He thinks like a quarterback. He likes to coach quarterbacks, and what do quarterbacks like to do? Rather than to hand it off, man, they like to throw it. So I think we'll always be throwing, and I think this year will be no different. Although we're going to have some terrific running backs. We're going to have probably one of the deepest running back rooms we've ever had. So we're going to have plenty of guys that can do it. But I think they'll probably try to activate them by swinging passes out of the backfield, which is another way to get your quarterbacks going. Some easy, almost like long handoffs, those swing passes out to the backs, and that's another way to get the backs involved and get the quarterbacks running as well. So that's what I think the offense is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, if you put a gun to my head, I think we're going to throw it more. I mean, if Brian's calling the plays and he's got to look at those receivers in the eyes, and they all want their touches and targets, and that I think the thing that I'm most curious about is how well will Brian Hartline marry the passing game to the running game when he's been a passing game guy his whole life. He's been a receiver, wide receivers coach, no background in the running game at all, and frankly, I'm sure that he has some knowledge of it, but again, how much do you stick to it when you have Marvin and Emeka out there? Like, that can be tough. I mean, when you've got a team, O-line is going to be, you're breaking in some new guys, and you've got the two best receivers in the country. Are you going to air it out 80% of the time, 75% of the time? Because we know passing is so overpowered now because of how they call illegal contact, they call holding, defensive pass interference. I mean, and then, if they catch the ball, then obviously, they get a huge gain out of that too. So there's all these like good things that can happen when you throw the ball that don't exist when you run the ball. So it's going to be interesting. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to our pass protection, how stout we are on the edges with the tackles, and how comfortable is Kyle McCord throwing the ball. Like, I'm sure that he's going to want to throw it. He's a quarterback, but the thing that I worry about, and the thing that is tough, and I had a really, really esteemed coach that I talked to today, actually, talk about how, you need to be able to run the ball to protect the defense. If the defense is struggling, burn some clock, keep them off the field, let them rest, get reorganized, whatever. And also, the ability to run the ball when the team knows that you have to run it. Like when you have to grind the clock out. And it goes both ways. It's both running the ball when they know you have to run it and stopping the run when you know they have to run it. Like against Michigan at the end of the game last year, where we needed to get a stop and we didn't get it done. Or if you're salting down a game like the Georgia game and you just got to keep running the ball to get, like it's like I've told people, like, look, we were 10 yards away from winning a national championship. If we kick a 40-yard field goal with Noah Ruggles, he probably drills that, but he'd never hit a 50-yarder before, and that's a big round number for a kicker in a situation where you're playing the Georgia Bulldogs in essentially what is a de facto national championship game. That's a big number, and it was too much, and he yanked it. And again, if you could have got 10 yards for him and made it a 40-yarder, then it's different. And you just had to get 3 yards on 3 straight plays to get there, but we weren't able to do it because we ran it once, we got stopped, and then we had 2 incomplete passes. So it's going to be interesting to see how Brian marries the running game and the passing game. Nevada, do you think that now that Brian Hartline is going to be the offensive coordinator, that there could be could the Buckeye Nation turn on him a little bit like they have in the past?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think if he has a challenging game, I think the honeymoon's over for Brian, and they'll be calling for his head so soon. But no, Brian's got he's got a longer leash than most because of his recruiting chops. But offensive coordinators generally, I remember Tom Herman. But Tom Herman came to Ohio State and was kind of like who, and then he started doing great things. And everybody's like, yay! And then by the time he left, it was like Menza, he's a bum. Get him out of here. We hate him. So I think Heartline will probably have something similar, but I was thinking about something you just said earlier, which I thought was really, really great about passing. Remember they used to say with Woody Hayes, yeah, 3 things can happen when you pass, and 2 of them are bad, or something like that. And now with passing, you're right. There's about 9 things that can happen, and about 7 of them are good. You know what I'm saying? You can get illegal contact. You can get a holding. You can get a pass interference. You can get a catch. You can get you can have your quarterback break the contain and run. So yeah, there's so many more the options that are open to you when you're passing. But Brian's going to have to figure out how to utilize the run along with the pass, and I think it's going to be a challenge for him because he's a wide receiver. He's never known anything having to do with the running game. He's always been about the passing game, and I think it's going to be a huge challenge for him. And we talked about this when Kerry Combs, came as the defensive coordinator. We were all excited to have him back because the rah rah and the recruiting. But we talked about how he's never done it before. Well, Brian's never done it before either, and I know why they did it. I understand why they did it. I think it makes all the sense in the world they did it, but it's going to be a change. And I think, Buckeye Nation's just got to be a little patient with him because he's going to be learning on the job. And it's going to be very interesting to watch the first 2 games. And especially when we go to Notre Dame after we've had the warm-up games going to see how Brian's done and how he's managed to figure it out because never done it before. And he's learning on the job.
It'd be fascinating if they put him up in the booth or not, or if they keep him down on the field. I've always thought that offensive coordinators should be up in the booth. I've just been in the booth. I've seen like a controlled setting. Again, it's like, those of you that have taken the ACT, the SAT, the MCAT, the LSAT, any sort of standardized test, that's kind of what it's like. Usually in a testing center, it's quiet, climate controlled, whatever. You won't want to do it walking up and down a sideline at a football game where it's loud and crazy, and that's kind of the level of concentration that you need. And like I sat next to Tom Herman when he called the plays, and I've seen Kevin Wilson sat in the box last year when he was working with Ryan. Obviously Ryan being the head coach calling the plays was something that I think he was good at, but I think that the overall management of the game could have been better if he wasn't so focused on burning up his energy, running the offense, because that is a tough job. That is a full-time job, and being the head coach is a full-time job. So when you try to do both instead of having, someone that you can delegate that to, it is tough to wear both hats. We'll take, let's see, we'll do one more question. And again, Dave, I totally agree with this. We gave up that 14-point lead against Georgia, but like you said, if we could run the ball, that keeps the defense off the field. If the defense is struggling, their best friend in the universe is our offense. Like in 2007, we were number 1 in the nation in total defense. And we also were a really good running team. We had Todd Beckman at quarterback. We had Beanie Wells at running back. Beanie ran for like 1,700 yards, and we were a ground and pound outfit. We weren't as high flying as we were in '06 with Teddy and Gonzo. We had Hartline and Robo, who were obviously very good players. You know, they were second, third round picks in the draft, but we were a ground and pound offense, and we would hold the ball and we would run the ball like crazy with Beanie, and our defense didn't have to defend as many plays because we were always burning the clock up. And that's something that I don't think people realize how important that is sometimes to work in concert, and that's something that Jim Tressel never gets enough of compliments and acknowledgement on. Is how a lot of our great defenses were because they only had to defend 55 plays or 60 plays because we ran the ball a lot and we burned the clock up, and we were cognizant of keeping our defense off the field because they can't score if they're not on the field. Like and again that goes on the flip. If you're playing Phillip Rivers, you don't want him on the field like ever. So you want to burn the clock up and run it out as much as you can. So I think that helps us, and I think that helps our defense a lot if they can look up and say, okay, we got a real break. Because I've been on offenses, in '07 and '06, you go 3 and out, the defense makes a stop and they play 8 plays and they stop them, hold them to a punt, and then you go 3 and out. You kind of, I'm not saying anybody ever did this to me, but you can feel the energy and you kind of feel the glares of like, geez, guys, you guys just went 3 and out and didn't burn any clock. We got to go right back out here. And I'm not saying they were tired, but you can sense when they're gratified when you have that nice long drive and you score, and then they get to hit the field and go do their thing after a nice long rest. So I'm gonna do one more from Paul, then we're out of here. How would Jaden Ballard work at punt or kickoff returns? I don't know, because I don't know if this kid's ever going to play. I think he's got a chance. This is a humongous spring for him, but he's got all the ability in the world. But there's just something that I don't believe the coaches trust yet. Obviously, against Georgia, they didn't trust him to go in at all after Marvin was knocked unconscious. So, it's now or never for Jaden, man, because with these guys, with the Rogers brothers and Carnell and Brandon Innes coming, man, and then if any of these guys that were freshmen last year are ready to roll, time's now for Jaden Ballard. And again, he's the guy that I've advocated for being a kick returner just to give him some sort of a role. But, I also agree with Nevada when he says, let's just leave Emeka back there, because he's surefire, locked in as a punt returner in terms of fielding the ball. And again, that's not easy. That's a pure luxury. And I agree that we should keep him back here. Nevada, your thoughts on Jaden getting any work? Should he get any work? Does he deserve any work?
Well, I mean, we thought he'd get work, coming out of the bowl. I mean, he's a burner. He's a guy that's, you're right there is amongst the fastest guys on the team, if not the fastest guy on the team. I think kickoff returns would be a great, place for him to cut his teeth, given the depth in the wide receiver room. Punts, as we've talked about, I'm a little bit hazy on that, but certainly a kickoff return, I'd give him a shot. And I would be surprised if he doesn't get a shot as the kickoff returner this year, because I know that they're giving a couple of guys different looks and they're definitely considering him. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we're going to wrap this thing. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you, Nevada, as always. So we are going to wrap this thing up. If you guys enjoyed this content, BuckeyeScoop.com, it needs to be your new home and your new homepage on your website. We appreciate all you guys that tune in, all of you guys that have subscribed there. So it's just an awesome community. It's so fun to be on there. Our game threads during the basketball games have been crazy. A lot of recruiting news with Bill Greene has been popping off. And again, we get our reports from practice. We do these things. We have a big nugget coming up tomorrow talking about the movers and shakers of the first 2 days of practice as they break for spring break. So we're going to get that out there for our subscribers. So we would love for you to join the BuckeyeScoop.com family, because it is a awesome place to hang out as you guys are watching the game or you want the latest on the spring ball. So as always, if you guys can hit that like button on the way out, appreciate you guys as always. Click subscribe, click the alert bell. Those are all great ways to make sure you don't miss any of our live content. We love the interaction with you guys. Thank you to all of our regulars that are in here. You guys are the best. Love seeing the familiar faces and getting these great questions from you guys. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family, and thank you to all the regulars of our Scoop live shows. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com. Go Bucks.